Icarus is fully immune to Incinerate and Shock effects, and reduces the damage of poison effects by 20%. And all of his basic attacks deal energy damage. When Icarus is struck by a medium attack, he will inflict a power detonation debuff lasting for 15 seconds on the opponent. If the power detonation expires naturally, the opponent receives a burst of 200% energy damage. If the opponent instead launches a special attack, this debuff is removed with no penalty. The cooldown for this debuff is 10 seconds. Icarus will gain 1 Energize whenever either champion strikes or hits into the opponent's block with a light attack. Each Energize buff lasts indefinitely until consumed, and while 1 or more Energize buffs are active, gain plus 70% combat power rate. The effect of Energize is reduced by 50% when used as a defender. This combat power rate cannot be increased or decreased by outside sources. While at 7 or more Energize buffs, whenever Icarus's power is reduced for any reason, inflict the opponent with a burst of energy damage per Energize buff. This has no effect against Mystic champions. All special attacks will consume up to 10 Energize buffs on hit. Finally, landing a heavy attack inflicts the opponent with an Incinerate debuff, equal to 50% of the Energize buffs, and removing 1 Energize buff. Energize buffs have a max stack of 10. Icarus can place Incinerate debuffs on the opponent using his special attacks or his heavy attack. The max number of Incinerates that can be placed on the opponent is 225. Each Incinerate will deal energy damage over 22 seconds. These will also remove perfect block chance and decrease block proficiency by 50%. Landing a heavy attack will pause all Incinerate debuffs on the opponent for 8 seconds. Using the special attack 1, Icarus will inflict 3 Incinerate debuffs on each hit. And refresh all Incinerate debuffs. Icarus will only refresh the Incinerate debuffs on the final hit of the special attack 1. If Icarus has 10 Energize buffs, gain a protection buff for 30 seconds, preventing Icarus from taking more than 5% of his max health from a single hit. This does not protect against damage taken from a special attack 3. Finally, if Icarus has less than 10 Energize buffs when throwing a special attack 1, gain an armor up buff increasing armor rating for 30 seconds. Using the special attack 2, Icarus will double all Incinerate debuffs on the opponent. If Icarus has no Incinerate debuffs on the opponent, he will instead apply 10 Incinerates. If Icarus has 10 Energize buffs when throwing the special attack 2, he will gain an unblockable buff for 8 seconds. And if he has less than 10 Energize buffs, he will gain a physical resistance buff for 30 seconds. The special attack 3 is a true damage attack that applies a bonus attack rating per unique buff currently on Icarus. As well, each Incinerate debuff on the opponent will also grant an increased attack rating. At the end of this attack, you will consume all but 10 Incinerates on the opponent. With an awakened Icarus, every time an opponent tries to apply an effect on Icarus that he is immune to, he will inflict an energy vulnerability passive on the opponent, reducing energy resistance for 10 seconds. This has a max stack of 10. Icarus's playstyle primarily centers around maintaining a high number of Incinerate debuffs on the opponent, up to 225 total, while also, as a secondary kind of system, maintaining a number of unique buffs on Icarus himself. Both of these components, the Incinerate debuffs and the buffs on Icarus, will combine once he hits his special 3 to increase his overall attack rating of that special. And that special attack with this increased attack rating does have a very high potential for damage. You are going to get most of this damage from the Incinerate debuff. So again, maintaining a high number of Incinerate debuffs seems to be much more important than maintaining unique buffs on Icarus himself. You can place Incinerates by hitting either the special 1 or the special 2 attack, and also by using the heavy attack. The fastest way to begin building Incinerate debuffs on the opponent is to use your special 1 attack. The special 1 attack has 3 hits in the attack, and each hit will place 3 Incinerate debuffs on the opponent, while the last hit, not only will it place Incinerate debuffs, but it will also refresh all active Incinerate debuffs on the opponent as well. You will find yourself using the special 1 attack a lot, as it does refresh those Incinerate debuffs, and also your heavy attacks, while they will not only place Incinerate debuff, they will also pause the Incinerate debuffs for 8 seconds on the opponent. So you're going to find yourself using a lot of heavy attacks and a lot of special 1s to make sure you're maintaining those Incinerate debuffs. Once you have thrown about 2 or 3 special 1 attacks and placed a lot of Incinerates on the opponent, then what you're going to do is want to use that heavy attack in order to pause those Incinerates while you work your way towards a special 2. The special 2 will double the amount of Incinerate debuffs on the opponent, but it will not refresh the Incinerates. So you need to make sure that you do have plenty of time to both double the Incinerates, but also to refresh the Incinerates getting back to that special 1. This may sound like a hectic or stressful playstyle, but it's really not, as whenever Icarus hits with a light attack, he will gain an Energize buff, which will increase his combat power rate by 70%. Now, he can continue to gain Energize buffs up to 10, which will affect which buffs he can then gain on himself. So he will gain certain buffs from the special attack 1 and special attack 2 if he has 10 Energize buffs, or if he has less than that. But the important thing to know about these Energize buffs is that you will never get more than 70% increase in combat power rate. So you really only need 1 to begin that. So if you just use a light attack, you will begin to generate power very, very quickly, and it is not hard to rotate between your special attack 1 and special attack 2. You also find that once you get used to this rotation, it becomes very quick to build up to that 225 Incinerate debuff mark. When you use your special attack 1, let's say you use it 3 times, you are going to generate 12 Incinerate debuffs on the opponent each time you use it. So the first time you will generate 12, the second time 24, the next time 48. And then if you use that special attack 2, you will turn 48 into 96, and then that 96 into 192, and then again 1 more, and you'll be well over 200. Now at this point, once you have the high number of Incinerate debuffs on the opponent and whatever number of unique buffs on Icarus, you will then want to go to your special attack 3 and throw your special attack 3 for a really high amount of damage. I will say that the unique buffs, while they do add attack rating, they don't seem to add as much benefit as the Incinerate debuffs. So it's much more important to get more and more Incinerate debuffs versus trying to maximize your unique buffs on yourself and try to maintain those. So it's much more important to get those Incinerate debuffs. One little tip though about the unique buffs: once you hit your special 3 threshold, if you are wanting to maximize your buffs on Icarus, one easy thing to do is to make sure that you dex back and gain that precision buff, so it will give you 1 more unique buff before you go into your special 3. The way I tend to play Icarus is by throwing 5-hit combos, always ending with a light attack, just so I can maximize my Energize buffs on Icarus. And then I will rotate through 2 to 3, typically 3 special attack 1s. This will refresh our Incinerate Debuffs. Then, once I hit the last of the special attack ones I'm going to go for, I will then alternate between hitting with a 5-hit combo, ending with a light attack, and then most of my attacks to this point will be parry and heavy attacks. This will ensure that whenever I hit my special attack 2, I still have plenty of time after I double those Incinerate debuffs to cycle back to my special 1. I'll basically repeat this process again, always making sure I have at least one light attack to gain that energize buff, and then rotating between parry and heavies to gain up to that special attack 2 again, so that then I can throw that and double my Incinerate debuffs. Finally, after I get the maximum number that I want to, I will race to my special 3 and throw my special 3 for maximum damage. If I do get into a sticky spot where I'm about to run out of my Incinerates, and I am in a place where I can throw my special attack 1, which again with his energize buffs you almost always will be, I will go ahead and throw that to save myself a refresh, because once you lose those Incinerate debuffs, they are gone and you will have to start from scratch. Finally, while Icarus does not need to be awakened in order to deliver a lot of damage, when he is awakened, he will place an energy vulnerability passive, reducing energy resistance for 10 seconds on an opponent, and this can stack up to 10 times. So if you're fighting an opponent who is going to inflict Icarus with debuffs that he is immune to, and again, he is immune to both Incinerate and Shock debuffs. So if you find yourself in a fight with an opponent who tries to land these even through blocks, then he is going to do a lot more damage on all of his special attacks, but especially that special attack 3, especially if you can stack these up to their maximum stack of 10. One final note on this Awaken ability though, this is only when the opponent tries to place the effect on Icarus, not if a node is placing it. So just remember, if you're in a node that would normally, put a shock or an Incinerate on Icarus, this is not going to count towards that energy vulnerability buff. It has to be coming from the opponent himself. Overall, Icarus is a good champion. He's kind of middle of the road. He's very fun to play as well, and he's very easy to play, so there's not a large learning curve when it comes to dishing out damage with Icarus. He lacks a little bit in the utility department, but where he does lack, he does build up and make up for this with his special attack 3 damage, which can be, at its maximum level, one of the highest special 3 damages in the game.